to Pack Mentality. I'm Matt Banwert. My wife, Caitlin, and I own Red Wolf CrossFit in Huntington Beach, California. And we started this podcast with one goal in mind, and that was to make fitness education accessible, engaging, and effective for everyone. Today, we have 5-year vet Parker McMains on the podcast. He's accumulated 1,000 workouts with us, and we're going to be hearing about his fitness journey today. So, Parker, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So good to have you, my man, and very excited to hear your story. I know you have a good one. So let's dive right in, shall we?
Sure.
All right, let's do it. Let's start from the beginning, shall we? So what inspired you to start CrossFit in the first place?
Yeah, I think my fitness story is probably pretty similar to most. I was never super athletic, but I did athletics in high school at a fairly high level. And then,
what did you do in high school?
I played basketball.
Obviously, because you're tall.
Yeah. Well, for basketball, I was actually kind of short.
Yeah.
I didn't play a lot, but, our team was really good. We won a state championship. So,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So there was a lot of, instilled kind of fitness involved in that. And so, obviously after high school, I wasn't going to advance anywhere, and you kind of fall into the life of, partying and girls and things like that. Mm-hmm. And so fitness kind of takes a back seat, but it was always kind of there. So I fell into the realm of, the Globo gym a couple days a week, trying to figure out my own thing.
Right.
And then, it was ironically, I was at a conference, a sales conference, and it was me and 4 other guys from different parts of the country. Mm-hmm. And after the conference, we all went to dinner. And we were just talking. I think we were talking about maybe doing a workout the next day. And each one of them was doing CrossFit.
Interesting.
And so, yeah, they were like, dude, you got to try it. You absolutely have to try it. Like, it's up your alley. It's challenging. You can never master it. All of the things, I think, from my personality, just made a lot of sense.
Right.
And I kind of had resisted it. I had a really good friend in New Jersey who was doing CrossFit for years and constantly was trying to get me into it. Mm-hmm. And I was always like, I'm not fit enough.
Or, the classic excuses.
Yeah, it's all the tropes, right? Like, I don't want to get injured, yada, yada, yada. So anyway, he was there at this dinner, and I was like, all right, I'll try it. He's like, dude, I'll find a gym by you, and then you just go. I was like, cool, all right. So he looked up and, saw Red Wolf, saw your guys' credentials, and was like, yeah, this is probably the gym I would check out. Mm-hmm. So next day I went, tried it out, and kind of the rest is history, I guess.
Dang, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So your friend looked it up for you and found Red Wolf.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Well, probably because he knew I would just, not do it. Go back to 24-hour fitness and do a couple curls, call it a day.
Okay. And how long ago was this?
So it'd be about like 5 years ago.
Oh, 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
about 5 years ago. Yeah, that makes sense because you're a 5-year vet with us. So that makes total sense. So what were some like your main things that were holding you back from just trying it on your own?
I had probably fear,
Yeah.
I think, a lot of it was, I'm not fit enough. I think ironically, I remember one of the first days I show up and you're working out. A bunch of the other members are all working out with your shirts off, like jacked. And I'm just like, oh, what am I doing here? I don't belong. But ironically now it's like, I'll be at Applebee's and they're like, sir, you've got to put your shirt on. But,
I love Applebee's.
Yeah.
I have reservations for this right after this for us.
Yeah, perfect. I think it's just a lot of fear of the unknown.
Right.
And, again, there's a lot of tropes out there about CrossFit, like you're going to get injured, or, you've got to be super fit, or it's only for a certain type of person, which honestly, none of that's true.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of, I think I just needed someone else to kind of give me a push to have, I guess, have the gall to show up.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. How long was it though, between the conference and your friend, finding that gym for you and you stepping at the door?
Oh, it was like 3 days.
Oh, okay. So, so you took action right away on actually doing it. Okay.
Yeah. So I got back and he's like, hey man, I looked up gyms. Here's the gym. He's like, there's 3 CrossFit gyms in your area, but this is the one I would go to based on kind of your guys' credentials.
Okay.
And he's like, just go check it out, do a class, and then we'll see if you like it, and we'll kind of go from there.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
Great. Let's pick up right there. So you did your first class with us, and you started training with us. Walk us kind of through those early days.
Well, the training is a liberal term, so let's be honest. I mean, I was a casual at most. I mean, I was going, I don't know, 2-3 days a week. I mean, 4 would be a good week. You know, if I could find, 1 or 2 days during the week and maybe like a Saturday or Sunday, I thought I was killing it, you know? So it was kind of a situationship, if you will, with CrossFit for a while.
Right.
But, it was fun. I liked it, the workouts. I liked the programming. I liked the ability to kind of be pushed outside of my comfort zone. I mean, when I would go to 24-hour fitness, it was all the same muscle groups, right?
Yeah.
Bench, curl,
and more bench.
and more bench. Yeah. All the keys. So a lot of it was like, I mean, honestly, lower body work was non-existent.
Right.
So like, lunges, I was like, what are we doing here? This is madness.
This is what women do.
Yeah. I mean, box jumps and all sorts of stuff. It was, and it was just, every day was different.
Yeah.
And so I knew at least, and the other thing too, which is nice, is like, I didn't have to think about it. Right. So in my job, I'm in sales, there's high pressure, there's a lot of, mental, exhaustion, throughout the day. So when I show up to Red Wolf, it's just like, dude, it's turnkey, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to think anything through. I don't have to be like, what do I need to work out? Like, what's the scheme need to be? Like, am I going to failure? Like, trust me, Caitlin's going to tell you you're not going to failure.
Yeah.
So that was always a great part of it. And I think that's what kind of kept me coming back. But for a long time, it was just kind of a very kind of casual relationship, I guess, with CrossFit compared to today.
Yeah. I do notice that you've picked it up really up in like the last, year and a half, 2 years. So let's kind of talk about that. So you mentioned that you were a casual CrossFitter. You're only coming a few times a week. Well, what were the main reasons that kept you from going all in like you are now?
Yeah, great question. A lot of it, I think, was there's always tomorrow.
Interesting. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, like I just always had this thing of like, there's time. Like I'll get in shape next year, or I'll really kick it up next year or 6 months, or it's like just not today. It's like Monday, like we'll start Monday.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of, next thing you know, it's like, wow, you've been doing CrossFit for a year. Next thing you know, you've been doing it for 2 years. And again, there's always time, right? There's always tomorrow. And I distinctly remember I was at my daughter's school, and there was 2 other dads. I don't remember what the context was. It was, some sort of like father-daughter day or something. And there was 2 other dads standing in front of me, and I was just kind of sitting there. And they were having a conversation, and the one dad was like, yeah, I don't know, man, I've gained like 20, 25 pounds. He's like, I just can't get it off. And the other dad's like, well, what are you going to do? You're dad. And it just struck me. And I was just
interesting.
I was just like, oh no, there is no tomorrow. Like I'm that guy. I'm that dad. I'm 20 pounds overweight, 25 pounds overweight. Oh, well, what are you going to do? And it just kind of like struck me. And so it's kind of interesting because 2 paths cross at the same time, right? So
that's really interesting that you mentioned that.
So this happened, and so like I get kind of got a bug up my tail, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna go to 5 a.m. the next morning,
right?
Which is out of the norm for me. I usually go in the afternoon.
So that immediately triggered a response in you.
Yeah, I was just like, something's got to change.
Yeah,
right. Like tomorrow's never coming.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, well, if I force myself to go to 5 a.m., I'll get up, I'll go. Like it won't be one of those days where it's like, I'm tired, I'm sore, my back hurts from sitting in the car. Like we're doing deadlifts, I'll go tomorrow. Mm-hmm. But if I wake up at 5, like I won't see the workout, I'll just show up, like kind of force me into it.
Yeah.
So I did, had a great workout. Caitlin was coaching. And then ironically, after the workout, she was talking with another member, and she just threw out like a really hefty goal that she wanted to accomplish. I don't remember exactly what it was. And I made the cardinal sin of, I made a kind of a funny comment made the cardinal sin of like throwing out my own goal.
Yeah.
Which is, it to a coach, it's, you know, now accountability. So she was like, she threw out this hefty goal, and I was like, yeah. And I want to get below 10% body fat, kind of laughing. And Caitlin, without missing a beat, like shoots up and looks me dead in the eye and goes, well, you got to get 200 grams of protein and you got to start coming consistently.
Wow. Just right then and there. Like, just told
like,
you how.
Just like that. And I started laughing, and I was just like, yeah, okay. Like thinking she was joking. And she's like, what? She's like, you can absolutely get below 10% body fat. And I was like, Caitlin, in high school, I was 6'3", 170 pounds, and I wasn't below 10% body fat. Like, you're insane. Like it's impossible for me. I don't have the body type. And she just starts laughing. She's like, what? That makes no sense. She's like, absolutely you can. She's like, but you've got to, the first thing you have to do, like we can't even talk about it until you start upping your protein, and you gotta come at least 5 days a week.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, well, now it's out there. So I was like, well, I'll try. And so I gave myself, a month. I was like, all right, I'm going to come 5 days a week for a month, and I'm going to eat 200 grams of protein. And Caitlin was like, look, I don't care how, what, or when you eat, just get 200 grams. Don't concentrate on anything else.
Yeah.
Because we had done like carb challenges and things like that at the gym. And like tracking food, it was just overwhelming.
Yeah. How long ago was this?
This was about a year and a half ago.
Okay, but
this is all when it started.
Okay, so this is when it started. Okay,
yeah.
So good. That's good to know.
Yeah, so this is kind of when, so I had that incidence of like tomorrow's never coming, and then I threw this goal out to Caitlin,
and this happened the next day.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love how you just like it's just so compressed for you.
It's like the universe is telling me something. It's like, dude, you got to work out. So I started working with her on like tracking protein, which was easy to do. It wasn't overwhelming. It was hard at first because I'd be like, yeah, I hit it. She's like, great, but you also had 4,500 calories. That's, let's figure out what you're eating.
Yeah.
And so, I would kind of tweak it over the course of a couple weeks and started getting it dialed in. And then that's when you came to me and you're like, hey man, like, I think it's awesome that you have this goal, and like, we're absolutely going to get you there. You're like, but you can't get lost in you can't get lost in the forest through the trees. And I think you really need to have a side goal. Like, let's have that as your main goal, but let's also have a side goal so that there's something else that you can concentrate on. Because I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think your fear was like, if you just have this one goal and let's say you fall off, like, it's very easy to just be like, well, I didn't make it. Yeah. Right. It's like when you're dieting and you're like, oh, I had pizza. You're like, well, might as well have those, 12 more taquitos and ice cream.
Yeah, exactly. It's there. I mean, I already started. I might as well just keep going.
Right. So I think, for you were like, let's get you a side goal so that you can kind of almost distract yourself a little bit.
Yes.
And I was like, cool. This was, I think, in January. And I was like, well, by the following open, I'd like to be able to do a bar muscle up. Yeah. And you're like, perfect, cool. That's a great goal. So we started to kind of work on that. And then those two things started to kind of collide. Yeah.
I do remember having that conversation with you.
And so I'm working on my diet a little bit, and, you start to notice a little bit like, oh, I don't feel as like bloated, or, maybe you look a little bit better in the mirror or whatever it might be. And so you're like, all right, well, it's easier to come the next day, right? And then you start working on your bar muscle ups, and now I've got like a goal to work towards, not just to show up for class. Yes. Right. So outside of that. And then the real like peak of it was probably 2 or 3 months into it. I working on my bar muscle ups, and I was working one day on my bar muscle ups, and I think you were helping me. And I was like, I'm having a really hard time like getting them, and I think it's the turnover. And I think technically I'm just having a hard part with turnover. And Caitlin goes, no, you're just not strong enough. And I was like, no, like, I've been working a lot with you guys. And I was like, no, I think it's technically. And she goes, yeah, no, technically you're just not strong enough. And I was like, damn, all right. And that's when you guys approached me with like extra programming, which we call Build and Burn now. But that that kind of changed everything.
Yeah.
So basically what it was is kind of, I mean, I don't know how you would describe it, maybe like kind of partial bodybuilding.
Yeah, it's a hybrid of both. So kind of like some background for those of you who don't know, Build and Burn is our side program that we do that complements class. And we started this because I used to do a lot of individual programming, and Caitlin did as well. And what we found is that the majority of people needed the same things. And we were charging a premium for this. You know, it was probably about an extra $150 to $200 a month on top of their membership. And I was like, this isn't cost effective. And I'm just noticing that most people need to work on the same stuff. So I was like, okay, well, let's do this. Let's start a separate program that is more cost effective, because then we're just writing one program that complements class rather than writing all these like 30 different separate programs that people are on, which when we really boil it down are like very similar in terms of what they're working on. And if anyone needs something very focused or specialty, then we'll tack on something that's more specialty. But we found that like 80 to 90% of the people just need to do these things in order to get better and to complement class. And so we implemented that, and we were able to actually drive down the price, which is much more affordable for people who can't even talk right now. And then also, we were able to balance out all the training that complemented CrossFit. So a lot of things that we see when we start training people is that once people get into CrossFit, kind of like you, Parker, when you're into it for like 2 to 3 years, is that you start plateauing.
Yeah.
And it's not that you've peaked in CrossFit yet. It's just that we're just not doing all the other things outside of those fitness realms. So think of CrossFit as like the main piece, but then you also have this endurance side, which will help improve your CrossFit. And we also have the structural side, or we like to call, most people like to call it like a bodybuilding style or skills that you need to develop in a low heart rate or moderate heart rate framework in order to get better at those CrossFit movements. Because like doing a bar muscle up or doing a heavy clean with a higher heart rate is a lot different in a WOD than it is when you're isolating that on its own. And so we found that when we were able to isolate some of these movements or skills that people want to work on, or isolate like an aerobic piece to get their oxygen intake better, their VO2 max. When we increase those things and we combine them together, their CrossFit actually were able to break through a lot of those plateaus. Yeah,
it's kind of like the secret sauce, because a lot of people will ask me, they'll be like, I show up regularly, and I'm not getting whatever it is, toast to bar, or whatever. And it's like, a lot of times you're not going to just pick it up just from coming to class. I mean, you can, but the problem is
it takes a lot longer.
Just takes a lot longer. And, ironically, like the amount of things that I've been able to put together and learn in the last year compared to the first 3.5 years.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It adds speed.
It adds a lot of strength. I mean, I was able to start doing high volume toes to bar. Like, I don't know. I didn't even realize it. It was just from doing the extra programming, like, I'd be able to do whatever, 5, 6, 7 toes to bar, and then I would just get tired.
Right.
And, that was then hanging knee raises or whatever afterwards, right? And I just, without even kind of realizing it, was like, oh yeah, if there's 10, 15, 20 toes to bar and, in an AMRAP or something, like, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I remember this specifically because you and I just did a workout together last week. And yeah, toes to bar, rope climbs, and echo bike in it. And you pretty much lapped me on the last round and beat me by like 3 minutes on an entire workout. So humble brag for you. I know you're not going to say it, so I'll say it.
Well, now it's on the internet. So.
But yeah, now it's true. But that's a perfect example, because I don't do build and burn as much as I should.
Yeah.
Simply because like I have a lot of it's just not my main focus, and my goal is to get on build and burn a lot more. But that just goes to show that like the contrast between you doing it consistently and me not doing it consistently and only doing class, and how we flip-flopped. Because I used to be, I used to be a lot fitter than I am now, and I'm still working on my progress as well. And then it was just great to see that that the program works.
Yeah.
Because that is one of the most satisfying things for me as a coach and someone who designs training programs. If I can make someone better than me, then that's an absolute success. Like Kim has passed me in terms of fitness. Who else? Caitlin has totally passed me. For years, Caitlin was trying to get on my level for fitness, and now she's officially way past me. Now you've passed me. Like, it's such an honor to see people and be like, oh, like, it works. Whereas other coaches might see that as like an intimidating factor, like, oh man, like I'm not as fit as the people who I'm coaching. But that is to me the ultimate sign of success. Is if I can make someone fitter than me, then that means I know my shit.
Well, and it's a testament to you guys too, because with my job, I travel a lot. And so I drop into a ton of boxes all over the place. And, it says something when I drop in somewhere, we do a workout and I'm ready to do another one immediately.
Yeah.
Because I just think, the programming here, really pushes people. But you guys also do a great job of having multiple tiers, right? So kind of going back to the intimidation factor, I mean, I didn't know coming into CrossFit, I just figured it was, 225 pound snatch buy-in, 150 burpees, it's like, oh, okay, you can't snatch, do, goblet squat or, you know what I mean? So it's like, if I would have known going in that there's levels to this game, son, I probably would have been more open to coming earlier.
Okay.
But that's just, ignorance is bliss, I guess.
Yeah. And a lot of that comes down to CrossFit and us as a gym in general, just educating the public and be like, hey, you don't need to be fit to start. Not everyone who comes in here is a beast. Like I just signed up someone yesterday who came in and she was intimidated by CrossFit. And then I talked to her and then she saw all the people at the gym and she's like, oh, okay. Like, she's like, just being here for the first 5 minutes, I'm like, I was expecting something completely different, but like, no, I can see how this environment fosters a really good place to get fit and to stay motivated and be held accountable and to, have an environment that people thrive in. So that was nice to see as well. So sometimes people have this preconceived notion of CrossFit, and rightfully so, because that used to be the norm. But I think if you go into most CrossFit gyms these days, that you see 99% of the population are there just to, be fit, gain muscle, lose some weight, be healthy for their kids, and just move on through their day. And it's the most efficient way for them because just like you said, they can just turn off their brain, show up, do it, and get out of there.
Well, it's crazy. I mean, you see it all the time, right? There's members all the time that, over the course of 6 or 8 months, just like go from like me, like a casual to just absolute beast, and it's, you get out of it what you put into it. And, if you want to, I mean, you can easily excel, over the course of 6 months to a year. And it's fun. Like once you get to that point, and you start achieving those goals and kind of marking those check marks off, it really gets fun.
Yeah.
That there's always more weight. There's always faster times. Yeah. There's always new movements.
Would you say that's kind of gotten easier over the years in terms of like, maybe not physically, but mentally you're able to,
It's to the point, if I show up 4 days in a week, like I've been in a car accident or something. I mean, like it's almost some would call it a sickness, I guess, because it's like 6 or 7 days a week is almost a must for me.
Yeah, it's funny, because I do remember when you were very casual. You I'm not gonna lie, you came in sometimes, you look miserable, you look tired, and then now you just turn into like this. You have so much more energy, you have so much more. You're accomplishing so much more and so much faster. And I think a lot of that is that you committed to a certain goal. You had that kind of side goal distraction, which is good. And I thank you for bringing that up, because I specifically do that because one of the hardest things that I see when I work with people is their lack of patience, and especially when they have a singular focus, which isn't a bad thing. Singular focus is a good thing, but at the same time, you need something to do in the meantime, because if you want to drop 20 pounds, that's going to take some time. And so I need to have something to distract you while you're working towards that main goal with a mini goal. So that way you have something to preoccupy yourself while you wait for that weight to come off.
It's overwhelming, right? To lose 20 pounds or 10 pounds or 5 pounds, I mean, it can be overwhelming. Even if you have CrossFit and you have coaches and who can help you with meal plans, I mean, a lot of times, like you said, like you fall off and then it's like, well, I can't do it, or, there's always tomorrow. Yeah. And it's just a matter of like, it's not even necessarily like turning a switch on and like, now all of a sudden I'm focused or driven. Like I've always been driven, but it's just more like, I think the consistency is what helped just drive things in, and then things get easier. And then as things get easier, it becomes funner. You can challenge yourself in different ways. Yes. You start to realize like, oh, wow, I was only behind Matt on like 5 reps. Like, well, if I keep working, maybe I can, tie them or whatever. There's a little bit of that competitive edge to it as well.
Yeah.
So.
And it's always great to have, like, I mean, people always say comparison is the thief of joy, but I disagree. Right. I actually think comparison can be very healthy, especially as long as you don't let it affect you in a negative way. Like, for example, like, especially if you compare to someone who's right above you, that's actually great because, you know, like when you're like, I'd rather be chasing someone than to be chased, because if I'm chasing, then I kind of have a benchmark of what's possible. And then 9 times out of 10, it's like I exceed my own expectations. I'm like, I can't believe I did that. And without comparing myself to something else, how do I know I'm even improving in the first place?
Yeah, it's funny. I kind of came to a realization through CrossFit that, like, my true joy in life is the climb. You know, it's the challenge. It's like once you kind of get there, whether it's professionally or physically or whatever, it's like, it's nice for a second, but it's like I instantly crave the climb again.
Yeah, then you want the next one.
Right. That's like, all right, I got a bar muscle up. All right, well, I can't string them together. So that, or
that's the next thing.
Right. Or can I do it on a ring? You know, or whatever can a handstand walk? There's always going to be something which I love.
Yeah.
And, I just, the challenge of it all. And then to your point, like being able to kind of understand where you are in regards to your fitness, because there's always going to be people in a class that are going to be relatively close to you, whatever your fitness level is.
Yeah.
Right. From absolute total novice beginner to just, 10 years of CrossFit, just beast, like there's always going to be someone you can kind of gauge, and there's someone you can chase and someone chasing you.
Yeah.
And I think, for me, that in just the overall community of Red Wolf, really, and you hear it all the time on lots of people say it, the community aspect as well as really keeps you motivated and coming back. Yeah.
No, I like what you said, especially about like people of similar levels in every class. And that's really helpful because to your point, that workout that you and I did together where you ended up beating me by like 3 minutes, I was like, okay, there was a point where I was like only like 10 cals behind you. I'm like, okay, just stay within 10 cals. And then it was 20 cals. And it was like, just don't let Parker lap me. But then I remember I still finished in a time that I was extremely happy with, because I remember looking at it before we started. I'm like, there's no way I can finish this in under 20 minutes. And then I'm getting 19:01 on the workout. So I'm like, regardless if like I couldn't keep up with you or with that goal, I was like, wow. I was was really satisfied with the fact that not only you killed it, but that I looked at myself and like, man, I did that 59 seconds faster than I thought I would. Yep. So I'm like mission accomplished. And like, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And also that day, I was tired. I was like, I really didn't want to work out. 4:30 was the only time I wanted to work out. And I was working the entire day nonstop. And I'm like, I really don't want to work out.
Right.
But I'm like, I have to lead by example and work out. And if you weren't there, like in front of me, doing the echo bike and going out super hot, like you did, and I wasn't chasing you, there's no way I would have had that good of a workout, because I felt so much better after I did that.
Yeah. It's like, perfect example is going to a Globo gym, right? It's always very easy to be like, 5 reps is good.
Yeah. And I don't need to do another set.
Yeah.
I can just rest another 5 minutes before I do my next one too.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of it. And it's like tomorrow we'll do snatches and double unders, and I'll, take me 40 minutes and you'll be done in 6.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the beauty of CrossFit in general.
Yeah. Is that, we both have our things, our strengths and weaknesses, and we get to push each other in both.
And you can never master it.
Yep. Always trying to get better.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. So let's kind of transition now. Yeah. So this is really cool statistic that we have on you, is that you are one of our first members to hit 1,000 workouts at Red Wolf, and you've been with us. Share with us some of the results that you've seen in 1,000 workouts.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the stats speak for itself. Ironically, when I first started, that first week, you guys had a DECA scan truck. And so I did a DECA scan, and I was in pretty good shape at that time, or so I thought. But it turns out I was just skinny fat. I was like 198 pounds, 200 pounds, something like that. Okay. 22% body fat. And then I did a DECA scan recently, and I was about the same weight, but I had lost like 10 or 15% body fat.
That's awesome. So in about 1,000 workouts in the last 5 years, lost about 10% body fat.
Yeah.
And how much muscle have you gained since then, since starting with us?
I mean, well, probably like 30 pounds of muscle.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's very believable because you've been with this for 5 years, but that's awesome. That's a great stat.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I the proof's in the pudding for me. It's it's changed my life, to be honest with you. I mean, fitness is definitely like a priority, whereas it used to just kind of be a luxury or, like I said, like a casual acquaintance.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're serious now. We're engaged. So,
No, that's awesome.
yeah.
What other lessons have you learned along the way?
It takes time, and I'm my own worst enemy, as I think most people are. I'm my biggest critic, and I want things immediately. I mean, I know sometimes it frustrates you because you'll be like, "Hey, what's your goal?" And I'm like, "I want to get ring muscle. I want to be able to, clean and jerk dick. I want to be able to do this." And then like, dude, let's focus on one or two. You can't have 12. And so I think what it's really taught me over the course of that is that things will take time. And if you give yourself that allowance for time, you'd be surprised at how quickly you'll pick things up and just kind of enjoy the journey and trust the process. I mean, honestly, your guys' programming is pretty amazing. And I can say that with confidence because, like I said, I go to a lot of different gyms. I see a lot of different programming. And you just got to trust the process. And, that was hard for me kind of going back to Build and Burn. For the first couple months, I was just like, what are we doing here, Caitlin? More Bulgarian split squats.
I know
it's more front squats.
Some of it's really boring, but it works.
But it absolutely works.
It absolutely works.
I mean, just the strength and stuff from your front squats. And that's just stuff I would have never done otherwise. Yeah. And I would have never done on my own. I would have never thought to do. So yeah, I mean, for those folks out there listening, I would just say just consistency and time. And it's kind of amazing how things change quickly.
That's awesome. That's a really good piece of advice. And thank you so much for sharing that. Patience is something that I severely lack as well. And that's something that got me in when I first started CrossFit as well. I was just like you, I wanted everything right away.
Right.
And then, unfortunately, that lack of patience had, forced me to relearn things and took me a year to learn it again. And that was a hard pill to swallow. So for example, I had to relearn how to snatch. It took me a year to relearn it. And, had I just learned it right the first time, instead of just trying to skip steps, then things would have been a lot better, a lot faster.
Yeah.
So, no, that's awesome. So you did mention that you drop into a lot of gyms. So I'm just curious to know, what are some things that separate the other gyms and from Red Wolf specifically? And I know that we're both biased, but I just want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I'm going to have preferential.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, and this kind of goes to going back to the, what do you learn over 1,000 workouts too? The access to knowledge. I think you, Caitlin, and Kim are all level 2s, if I'm correct. And I think what people can miss a lot, one of the things I get a lot out of Red Wolf because I pull a lot. I ask Kim constantly about barbell work, or I'll ask Caitlin hey, I'm struggling with this, or I'll come to you and be like, hey, I want to do this. And the more you can pull, there's such a wealth of knowledge with you guys, and you're so willing to help. That, I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't proactively set goals with coaches, talk to coaches about how the goals are going, what you're struggling with. If you're only coming in 2 days a week for a reason, don't be afraid to talk about that with a coach, because there might be ways that they can work with you.
Yeah.
If there's something inhibiting you, whether it's you're too tired. So for example, I'll talk to you and I'll be like, man, I'm just tired. I'm sore this week. And you're like, honestly, I think you need to, maybe add some carbohydrates in your diet. And you start eating a banana after workout. It's little things like that, and it's I think I get that because I seek it. And I think, again, I just think you're doing yourself a disservice if you're going to show up to class, do the class, and go home. Yeah. Because there's so much more available to you. And I think at a lot of the other gyms, at least that I drop into, it's very much mechanical like that. People come in, they work out, they leave. Yeah. And I just see at Red Wolf in general, there's a lot more interaction with the members that, they're they're engaged with whatever their diet or, whatever their fitness level is.
Yeah. And thank you for bringing that up, because I think one of the biggest lessons that we've learned as coaches is that there's so much that goes on beyond the four walls of the gym. Like, believe me, the gym is great, but I mean, you come, 3 to 5 times a week. That's still only like, 6% of your week that you're spending inside the gym itself. And so much of it goes on both in mindset and nutrition. So we realize when we start coaching people more on like, just how they think and how they perceive things, kind of the mental fitness side of it, as I like to call it. And that really helped a lot of people kind of dig themselves out of their own ruts in terms of confidence. Confidence is a big thing, because it's not easy. It's intimidating, like you said, and we try and lower that intimidation factor by just reminding people, our stories, where we came from, all the coaches, we start at zero, just like everybody else. I tell people all the time the story of how much I hated the gym, and that there was a time in my life where you couldn't pay me to work out. And then now, like, I own and run a gym. So I tell them that story and that really helps them. And then same thing with the nutrition is that it's so holistic, because we know that, CrossFit's not easy on the body. So if you're not fueling properly, if you're not sleeping properly, and then there's all these really low cost supplements that you can take, like fish oil and magnesium, which we know that if we have all our members on that they'll recover better and they'll get better results. And, and when they get better results, then ironically that things end up working a lot better. So,
well, there's such a history of disservice in the fitness industry in general, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, let's be honest, the food pyramid's upside down.
Yeah.
Most people think like I need to eat less. Like, it's really hard when especially with CrossFit, when your coaches are like, you got to eat more. You're like, but I'm trying to lose weight.
Yeah.
Like, I know. Eat more to lose weight. You're like, that makes no sense. But again, there's a lot of knowledge, and I think you just have to kind of trust you guys. You've been doing this for a long time. You know what you're doing. You consistently get results with people. And I think people just need to kind of let go of the bro science and what they think they know from the internet or whatever.
Right.
It's like, I'm in the medical industry, and it's like, there's nothing worse than like people WebMDing symptoms. It's like,
dude, believe me, I know that one. That is bad. Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing with fitness.
WebMD is something that I have to deal with as well. No, thank you for bringing that up. Nailed it. WebMDing symptoms.
Good times.
That's usually how it goes. I wanted to kind of talk about some advice that maybe you would have for people kind of with some of the same struggles that you had as well. So I know that you mentioned earlier that, that there was like an intimidation factor. Am I right? So can you kind of walk us through that?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, when I first showed up, it was like 4:30 in the afternoon, which was like apparently every beast at the gym's time to work out. Everyone's clean and jerk. I had a lot of fitness background, but I never touched a barbell really outside of bench. So clean and jerk, snatch, those are all kind of nuanced and new to me.
Yeah.
So to watch somebody clean and jerk, 245 multiple times, I'm like, and just the sound of the barbell like dropping, and just like, wow, people, doing bar muscles. What is happening here?
Yeah.
And I think for me, it was just like, all right, like, I just got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I'm going to be uncomfortable for a while. I know it won't be forever, hopefully. So I just got to keep showing up, and I can't get wrapped around, which is easy for me to do in general, like what other people are doing and comparing myself. This is one of the instances where you don't want to really compare yourself, right?
Yes.
Like, you need to kind of focus on where you're at from a fitness perspective. And I think what helped me is like the app, right? The app tracks all your workouts. And so we'll repeat workouts occasionally. And so it's a great, like, for instance, we just did one. It was an echo bike and bar facing burpees.
Oh yeah.
And, it's a horrible, horrible workout. And we did it a couple weeks ago, and we had done it like 2 years prior. And I shaved off like 4 minutes
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's
Off
crazy.
Puma pounds?
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's be honest. I was, probably wasn't in the
But
best shape.
4 minutes on that workout is a big deal.
Yeah.
That's a short workout.
But it's, that's probably a testament to how poorly I did originally. But it's just also nice to see your own progression.
Oh yeah.
And
100%.
I think that's the thing is like, don't necessarily worry about the weights that somebody else is putting up or doing. Like, just kind of concentrate on every day getting one day better.
Yeah.
If you can get 1% better every day over the course of 6, 8, 12 months, you'd be wildly surprised at what a difference it makes.
No, that's very true. No, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. And I think that's something that I struggle with a lot as well. When I was first started CrossFit, and I wasn't necessarily working out with people, but I would do CrossFit.com and everyone would post their times on the comments, and that was kind of like how things went back then.
Yeah.
And I remember there was if you old school CrossFitters will know this name, but there's this guy named Chris Spieler, and he was a monster at bodyweight workouts, like super fast. He's a CrossFit Games athlete. He's a CrossFit OG. He's on seminar staff. Very respected and well-known CrossFit athlete still, and gym owner as well. And I remember seeing some of his times, especially on the bodyweight workouts, and be like, man, how is he so fast? But then I remember, looking at my times, but then just seeing my times either drop or my rounds and reps go up, my weight going up, and being like, man, this is awesome. Like, I am seeing so much progress. Like, for example, my back squat went from like 225 to like 315 in a matter of like a month, just simply from just working out and just tracking. And then I'm just like, wow, suddenly I was just there. And, there's other people putting up like 500 pounds, but I'm like, dude, I just made a 90-pound jump in a month,
Right?
in strength. And you're just like, this is awesome. And when you start seeing that progress, it makes you even more motivated.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I think one of the biggest things that proudest moments I think I had in CrossFit was just like that one time when you did an RX workout and you're like, I'm at the big boy table. Yeah,
That's so true.
and then and then you're like, cool. Well, wow, I just RX 3 workouts this month. And maybe it's certain movements that you're better
Right.
at, or maybe the weight was a little lower so you could manage it or whatever. But then it's like motivating, and then you kind of get to the point you're like, okay, I'm RXing almost every workout. And then it's like to go back and look when I first started. I mean, I remember. I think it was like my third class. We were doing overhead squats, and I still to this day have zero shoulder mobility. But I mean, the bar just felt like 1,000,000 pounds, and I was just like, I wanted to give up. It was like 5 reps, and I was just like, I can't do this, And then you look back at it, and you're like, you're doing significantly more weight down for significantly more reps. And it's like, yeah, I mean, you can absolutely get there. And sometimes it seems like you never will. And sometimes it seems like that's so far off in the distance, but you just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other and showing up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's such a great way to put it. What other accomplishments are you proud of achieving with us at Red Wolf?
Yeah, I mean, the bar muscle up was big. I mean, that for me, because I didn't think it was possible. Again,
You didn't think it was possible at all?
I really didn't. I mean, I'm just, I'm tall, lanky. It's a lot of limbs to be moving around. So that was a big one. And that was a good one too, because it was a collective one, right? So you were the one who was like, first set me on the journey. Then I had Caitlin, basically telling me I'm not strong enough and trying to, she was like, you gotta do pull-ups every day, stuff like that. And then it was ironically, it was Kim. It was like, I think in the summer, so she was coaching in the morning. And, after the class, I was like trying to do muscle ups, and she was like, hey, has anybody ever showed you to do it with a band? And I was like, I don't know what that is. And so she tied a band up and had me do like 10 or 15. And then she's like, well, take the band off, just see if you can do it. And I popped up. And it was like this collective, all the coaches kind of helping me in different ways. Yeah. Which was kind of a cool experience. And so like, and it also shows like everybody's pretty vested in you. If you take the time to really try to, invest in your fitness, like people invest back in you, which was a cool experience. Yeah,
100%. Yeah. And that's just a friendly reminder to everybody that feel free to ask us questions. We're always here to help. We want you to succeed. Believe me, we know how hard it is, and we try and filter all the information out there because there's a ton of it now, especially with the internet and Instagram and social media, that there's a lot of good stuff out there, but not everything will work specifically for you. So that's why, I mean, we know you personally. We know where you're at fitness wise. We see you every day. So come to us, talk to us, and we're always welcome. We're always more than happy to help you get to that next stepping stone.
The other thing too is like, there might be an intimidation factor, but you'd be really surprised at how welcoming everybody is, because everybody's been that first person, that first day in the gym.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone's felt that like, oh, I'm going to be the kid picked last, Mm-hmm. So, I'll do it all the time. I talk to people all the time of like, hey, what are you doing? Like you smash that workout. Like, Like, what would you do? Is there anything else I could be working on or whatever? Like, I think people in general at Red Wolf especially are just super open. And so, I mean, there might be an intimidation factor, but it's more in your head.
Yeah.
I think if you open up and just kind of approach people, you'll find them more than welcoming.
Yeah. And, I mean, rightfully so though. I mean, it's really easy in fitness. I mean, the gym in general, regardless if it's a CrossFit gym or any gym, it can be very intimidating, especially when you're new to fitness. And it's really important to remember that first off, that's okay. And that's completely normal to be intimidated. And that's specifically why at Red Wolf, we try and create an environment where it is welcoming, where beginners are taken, just as seriously as anyone else, if not more seriously. I mean, not more seriously, but like we really make sure we have a really good onboarding process for anyone incoming, just to make sure that they're comfortable in the environment, because we've been there before. And so we know what it feels like to be new. We know what it feels like to not know anything. We know what it feels like to feel like you may be the perception of being inferior when you're really not. Like, we're all on this journey together. We're all at different stages. And yeah, like, I mean, everyone feels the same thing. So it's completely okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's just it, right? We're all on the same train, moving the same direction. Some of us got on at different stops.
Yep.
And so, I talk to people, you'd be surprised. And, I think it's good and it's motivating. If you've got people in class that can push you and you can push them, it just makes for a better experience. It's also going to make it, you want to come back, right? There's a social aspect to it.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. You get that accountability, you get that motivating factor. You don't have to think about anything, and it just streamlines everything. It makes it just more efficient rather than playing the guessing game, which I've tried before and it doesn't work. So
yeah, you and me both.
Yeah. Before we start wrapping things up here, do you have any other advice you would give to people listening to this who's been on a similar journey like you, think of it like you could talk to yourself, 10 years ago or even 7 years ago, what would you tell yourself?
Yeah. My biggest regret in life is just not starting sooner.
Yeah.
And not really, and that goes for all aspects. Like even, again, I did CrossFit for 3.5 years, and my journey in the last year and my growth from a fitness perspective is like leaps and bounds compared to 3 years ago. And if I would have started CrossFit even further than that. So it's almost like, again, my only piece of advice is like, tomorrow, there is no tomorrow.
Yeah.
Just start today. And if you fall off, that's fine. Dust yourself off. Try again tomorrow, because you are going to fall off. There's going to be times where it does get tough. You don't show up, but that doesn't mean you can't show up tomorrow. Just keep making the effort. And eventually, it's like, it's like a 1,000 holes in a dam will finally break.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you tell someone who is struggling with that currently about, like, let's say that they were off to a good start, but then they kind of dipped and they're kind of falling off the bandwagon? What would you tell them to help them get back on the horse?
Yeah, and this comes up a lot because you'll see a member, and they'll kind of disappear for a couple weeks, and whatever. I mean, I get it. Like, life happens, right? Whether it's personal or professional, or it's just. And I kind of always say the same thing. It's like, well, just show up. If you can. Show up. If you're able-bodied and you're here, show up and good things will happen.
Yeah.
I get it. You're tired. You're exhausted. You don't want to. You're hungry. Just show up. You'll be glad you did. And, it's like just one day at a time.
Yeah.
Just show up today. That's all that matters.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like one of those things where you want to make the action the goal rather than the goal itself.
Yeah. I mean, it's, it's like, I don't know if I'll work out every day for the rest of my life, but I do know today I'm going to work out.
Yep.
That's the best piece of advice I can give.
I love it. No, that's really good. Very simple. And yeah, definitely things that people need to hear. Any other words of wisdom from Parker before we wrap things up here?
Write someone else's name down if you want a free NoCo, which is nice. No, oldest trick in the book. I just think, I think just show up, and show up, chin up.
I love it. Great. Well, so good to have you, Parker. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. Just to recap, everyone, Parker has accumulated 1,000 workouts with us. He has a great fitness journey. He's really turned on lately, and we're really proud of you for losing that 10% body fat and maintaining it. I mean, you're under 5% now, correct?
Yeah. And I have been for like a year.
Dude, that's awesome. Under 5% for the last year, and he's also gained 30 pounds of muscle in the last 5 years with us. And we're so proud of you and the work and how you've totally switched on the last year and a half to 2 years. And we can't wait to share your story with everybody. It's very inspiring.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate everything you guys have done for me. So
this was awesome. Well, thank you so much for listening. If this was helpful, please leave us a 5-star review so we know to make more content just like this. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Red Wolf CrossFit, and please DM your content suggestions there. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, good luck. Have fun. Nailed it.
Nailed it.